grant. We knew that we wanted to start the program in a way that was also going to allow us to learn from our mistakes. The design was specifically for our schools that were hard to fill in terms of having highly qualified teachers, as well as looking at subjects that were part of the core testing areas. So when the program was designed, we took into consideration what schools are we going to identify as being a part of the first program, and what was the criteria that we were going to use. We looked at those schools that were Title I, that had the fewest number of highly qualified teachers, and also those schools that were in the process, were either in improvement or had been in improvement and were going to the next stage in terms of reconstruction. There were a total of 42 schools that were a part of the first grant. And what that meant was that only those schools that were identified in the grant could participate first. The goal was to make sure that as the program was defined, that it was also going to be rolled out throughout the entire school system. So it wasn't just to be that the incentives were available for the 42 schools, but we were planning to make sure that it was going to be available for all schools throughout the school system. There would be some type of incentive available for teachers. The problem, of course, in these economic times, that's going to be real challenging for us. But we're still looking at and attempting to identify ways that we can roll out the entire system, the entire incentive program, maybe not at the same levels, but certainly having it available for teachers who are interested. The components first. The task force decided that we were going to use the Charlotte Danielson framework for teaching as the evaluative tool for our teachers. And when the task force met monthly during the first year. There was the task force for teachers, and there was a total of 15 persons on that task force, 4 of whom were teachers. We had a couple of consultants who came in, and their primary role was to provide information on other school districts who had incentive programs. We wanted to learn what worked, what didn't work, what were some of the stumbling blocks that they had identified, what were the amounts that we should start looking at. One of the things that we decided very early on was that if we were going to use incentives, they had to be at a level that really was attractive for people to do the work that we were going to identify. So our program provides $10,000 to teachers, and that's over and above their salary. It's broken down into specific amounts depending upon their goals. Okay, the $10,000 for the awards, the payout, if they're in a hard-to-staff subject, that would be $1,500 that they are entitled to. And hard-to-staff is defined by Maryland state guidelines. The professional growth, they can earn up to $2,000. And the professional growth is either a project or professional development that they identify as what they want to accomplish within the year. The first year of the grant, this year, which is the year that we rolled out, that was defined for them through the training that was offered through our professional development department. One of the things that we felt was extremely important was that all of the participants had a solid understanding of what the program entailed. So for persons who, before they signed an agreement saying that they were going to participate in FIRST, there were 3 classes that they attended, which gave them an extensive overview of the grant. What was in the grant, what the grant said, what were the boundaries within the grant as far as payouts, timelines, that kind of thing. A second class was on the growth over time models, whether they were in an elementary school or in a high school, how that was defined, what the models meant, and what they were going to have to achieve as a teacher in the classroom in order to get the payout. The third training that they attended was on the evaluation model. One of the things that was very exciting for the teachers union was the fact that we were going to change the evaluation tool that was being used within the county. No one was satisfied with the tool. And so when we looked at Charlotte Danielson as the area or as the model that we wanted to use for our teachers, the union as well as the teachers who were on the task force were totally excited. One of the things that the Danielson model required is that the principals had to go through, I believe it was about 25 to 30 hours of training on how to use the evaluation tool. It really focused upon what was happening in the classroom. It wasn't the subjective, let me come in, let me see what you were doing, yes, this was happening, no, this wasn't happening, and all of the yes and no's really were dependent on how I, as a principal or an assistant principal, was particularly feeling that day. The Danielson model has a number of opportunities for the teacher as well as the principal to have some dialogue about what it is that should be occurring in that classroom and what does effective teaching look like. The book itself was used as a training a manual for both the teachers as well as the principals. We used some of the grant dollars to bring in the Danielson trainers. We actually used persons who were certified in the use of Danielson to train the principals. They had to be approved by the Danielson folks that they were ready to do the evaluations. One of the things that we did to ensure accuracy and some inter-rater reliability was to have the first evaluation, the Danielson trainers came in, observed the teacher, gave them feedback on what they saw taking place in the classroom. Once that was done, the teacher had the information and he or she could then decide, these are the areas that I want to work on. And they had the conversation with the principal on, these are the areas that I intend to work on. The next observation that was going to be done would be a combined observation with the Danielson representative as well as the principal in the school. Under COMAR, only the evaluation that was done by the principal would be part of the teacher evaluation. What we learned from the experience, though, this was a new process for the principals. This was something very different to sit down, have a professional conversation about what it is that I as a teacher want to accomplish, the principal being able to state, this is right in line with what I want to see in my school, in the classroom, and let's see how we can get this to occur. Many of them were a little unsure about the process, and so they wanted to see what Danielson was saying before they did their evaluation. So we've gotten a lot of push and pull on this whole thing around the inter-rater reliability. But the first office has said, because this is an evaluation that really goes into the teacher's file,